Ladies and gentlemen, French colleagues and listeners, here we are again, another week, and they do fly past so quickly. Stevie, I understand you're back in the UK now. Nice to have you back.
Good morning, Chris. Nice to be back. I'm not sure it's as bright and breezy as I wanted to be. I watched a fabulous game of tennis. I was going to say it last night, but I'm not really sure. It felt much more like this morning.
Oh, how did she get on? How did she get on?
The young Emma Raducanu won 2 sets to 0, which was great. She won the game in 2 sets. Yeah, it was fabulous. She did a great job. Very composed, very disciplined. Didn't change her game. Maintained the same kind of style of play throughout the match, and she came up trumps. So now she's the first ever qualifier in the world ever to reach a Grand Slam final, which is amazing. So really chuffed for her. It's great not only for British tennis, but great for the sport as a whole. Nice to see the new generation, or the next generation, coming through for a sport that was dominated for years by, in the female sport by the Williams sisters, and in the male sport by people like Djokovic and Murray and Nadal and Federer. It's nice to see a new generation coming through. So it was thoroughly worth getting up for getting up for, not going to bed rather, this morning. So great stuff for Emma Raducanu.
Wow, good on her. She seems a lovely kid as well, huh?
Yeah, and she manages the not like that miserable cow Naomi Osaka, who she looks like she's chewing on a wasp, Chris. Never got a smile on her face, never happy about anything, always complaining about the media. She can't do the interviews, I can't do this, I can't do that, complain. This young lady of 18 years old has just got on with the job. She treats the microphone in front of the world's TV cameras as well as she does a tennis racket. Good on her.
Yeah, brilliant. My God, she's got a career and an incredible media life ahead of her, huh?
Yeah, well, her total prize earnings before today were 30 grand. She's already up to £900,000 for the place in the final.
Good on her. That's fantastic. And now her rankings have probably gone. What was she? She was up 200, wasn't she?
Yeah, so in the mid 200s. Yeah, and I think her world rankings will have improved slightly based on her performance. But great to see the underdog coming through, Chris. I really like that. It's a great passion of mine, supporting the underdog.
Yeah, there'll be a film made of her probably next year or the year after now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's great news. Right, lovely boy. I didn't realise you were a tennis supporter.
I'm not really. I tend not to watch too much tennis, but when it's on and when it's as important as I watched the quarter-final match and I thought she did exceptionally well, and so I sort of got hooked. And I saw her. She left after the second round in Wimbledon, sadly. So I've been sort of following her since then. But great kid, great story. And a child of immigrants, Chinese Romanian immigrants, which is fabulous. British born, goes to local comp school. I mean, it's a great story, Chris.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Fantastic. It's a little bit, I mean, he didn't come through like that, but it reminds me of Becker. Do you remember when Becker won? He won Queen's and then he went on and won Wimbledon. He was only, 19 then as well? 19, I think.
Yeah, Boris Becker. I was just sort of starting out in my in my years on this planet at that time, Chris. So I have to say, I remember things like, I was listening. It was so nice to hear Martina Navratilova. She was commentating last night, and I that was the sort of generation that I grew up with, I guess. It was her and it was Steffi Graf. Oh yeah, I used to remember watching Steffi Graf, and I bumped into Steffi Graf when I was a kid. I think I was 4 or 5 years old at the Olympic Stadium in Munich, and we were staying in Ingolstadt, and Steffi was there in her tennis gear, and for a young boy, she certainly she was sister-like material, let's say. I wasn't really thinking much more beyond that at that stage, but certainly as I got older, I would have. Steffi Graf was a favourite of mine.
Yeah, no, they're great. Well, long may her reign last now, and good luck to her. And like you said as well, it's always nice to see people who are so happy with what they do and willing to, embrace that energy and almost like saying thank you to everybody for the opportunity that she's got, rather than assuming that it's her right. So good on her.
That's right. Absolutely.
Brilliant. Now, down to the news, my friend. Hey, so here we go. First one now. After a great start in the States, now you've got United cutting their Q3 earnings expectation because of this damn Delta variant and booking slowing up. So it's a stop-start again, Steve. So as we said before, can't really see anything major happening everywhere until sometime end of Q3, beginning of, Q2 next year, I think.
Well, I just had I was on a client call this morning with an airport in Europe, and we were just they were expressing their frustration that not every market that they're relying on deals with it in the same vein in which they would like it to be dealt with, which is we've got to learn to live with this. We've got to learn to get on with it. We can't keep sort of opening and closing routes as pockets of virus appears or different variants appear. With a highly vaccinated population and providing both ends of the route, that you're looking at highly vaccinated, then I don't think that should be the threat that it is, Chris. But I still think there is some caution from the consumer, and I still think there's a lack of confidence from the consumer. And the US managed to recover much more quickly than most markets because they've got such a large domestic market that is predicated on long journeys, and therefore air travel is a necessity. Unlike in Europe, where people can still travel in alternative ways or find alternative means of going places, I'm amazed at the amount of people that I was in Spain this week, and amazed at the amount of people that still wear masks on the street after the no mask rule was removed. Yeah. And whilst I might sort of jokingly call them nervous Nancy's, which I do think is a fair representation of what they represent, I think there's an element of or pockets of the public, Chris, that are still slightly cautious and wouldn't be booking travel straight away and wouldn't be looking to return to travel. So I think we've got that to contend with as well. And so it's incumbent upon airlines and airports, and I say it's nervous Nancy sort of tongue in cheek, but it's incumbent on us to make sure that we're still doing everything we possibly can to raise confidence levels, to maintain that sort of the approach to hygiene and cleanliness, and let's call it sort of cabin cleanliness, and use this as an opportunity to still push the angle with the customers that flying is safe and you can return. The third point along with that is so the markets, consumer confidence. The third piece is generally around the government guidance, I think, Chris, or government travel restrictions.
Yeah.
For example, here we are finally talking about. I said these clowns in Whitehall, Grant Shapps and are finally talking about removing the traffic light system, which is great news. That I hope will also lead to removing testing for people arriving from green and amber countries. I think testing is no longer the tool that it was. It did help before, but if you've got a vaccinated society, then I don't think that testing is a tool that is there to encourage good behaviours and good practice. I think it discourages people from booking because simply of the cost associated with it. I had a test in Spain this week. Now, I had an antigen test. On the UK government website, it says they recommend a PCR test. Well, you can stick your PCR test up your backside, because I ain't doing a PCR test. I'm doing an antigen test. And while they can highly recommend what they like, I will make sure I'm compliant with an antigen. That's 30 euros, Chris, in Spain. The comparable test here in the UK is 60 quid. That's more than 3 times the cost, or almost 3 times the cost. A PCR test minimum these days really is around 80 quid.
Yeah.
And so they can recommend all they like, but I shall not be falling into that trap. Given that I see most of these boxes go unanswered, and it takes forever to get your results back in any case. So what's the point of a test?
Nah, exactly, Steve. It's another example of how something that was basically simple logic has like just blown out of proportion again, and the money that was going across the counter for some of these tests was ridiculous, and also some of them even coming back, with no result at all. And I think that was down to the fact that they had too many, or it was done incorrectly, and then screwing people's holidays up.
Well, somebody said to me last week that they ordered the test online. They were of a similar mind to me, although they're slightly more defiant. They said, "Oh well, I'll order it because I need to get the I need to get the test, to get my PLF completed, right? Because you need your number on the form." But when the test arrived, they said, "Oh, I'm not doing the test. Not going to bother. I'm in the country now. Who gives a toss?" So they didn't do the test. But lo and behold, Chris, they got a result sent to them a few days later.
Well, that's one. I haven't heard that one, but that's one for the books. But no, but it's a shame. It's a shame the way it's going as well, because people don't know what's going on now, and it's. I think there's as much confusion now as there was at the beginning of it. But like you said, we've got to learn to live with it, and there will be. No, I've got to bring this up, Steve. Sorry to put a little stone in your shoe again. The vaccine passport issue. I think we both seen some tongue-in-cheek humour going around suggesting that those that would be on security at nightclubs might be influenced by the new design of the vaccine passport, i.e. the one with the Queen's head on it.
The purple one.
Yeah.
Purple one. I mean, as amusing as that is, that was a chuckle there when I saw that yesterday. You saw it was the same group, but I'm really not keen on this, Chris. Really not keen.
I know.
I don't like the idea. I think it's bad form. I think it's illiberal. I think it is an encroachment on our rights and civil liberties, and I really do think that for international travel, vaccine certification has been a requirement for many, many years. The certification of prophylaxis, I seem to remember, or prophylaxis, or however you say that word. It always reminds me of Leisure Suit Larry prophylaxis, because he was these are prophylactics were for something else in his repertoire. But we'll leave that there at 9:50 on a Friday morning.
Yeah, not a place we want to go, Steve.
But no, I do. I feel very uncomfortable by it, Chris. However, I will conform. I must say, I will conform. I'm not one of these sort of antis that rally against it and say, "Well, I'm not going anywhere." No, of course I won't do that. That's very stupid and silly and sort of petulant. In the same way, I was on the train yesterday from Stansted. I did not wear a mask because masks are not required on national rail services. When I got onto Tottenham Hale, I changed on the Victoria line, and like a good compliant citizen, I put on my mask because masks are required in TfL services. So if there is a requirement to do something, I think it's incumbent on people and the public just bloody fall in line and do it. It's far easier to do it than not do it. But the amount of people on the tube, Chris, that are not compliant was actually quite astounding. And I'm not going to sort of throw stones or criticize people. I'm happy to sit next to somebody with a mask or without a mask. It doesn't bother me in the slightest.
But what is bothering, Steve, is how you can have one organisation that says yes you must and one that says no you don't. It makes people think, well, who really knows what's going on? It's wrong. But
TfL, remember, comes under the purview of Mayor Kant.
Yeah, but
therefore he's made his own rules up.
Yeah,
so Mayor Kant is an absolute Kant, and we should avoid him at all costs. And I'm with National Rail and Network Rail on this one. I will not. I will support their approach, which comes under the purview of Whitehall and Department for Transport.
Right, and thank God you've got good use of the Queen's best, because the pronunciation there was a little bit close to the mark. But
no. We call him Mayor Can't because he can't do anything.
I know. We'll move on. Right, EasyJet rejecting the takeover bid and seeking now to raise money. Bit of a shock.
Blow me down. Shiver me timbers, Chris.
Yeah, and also the share price. My goodness me.
Well, it took an absolute tanking. I was reading it yesterday in London's finest Evening Standard, and it was I was shocked. I mean, EasyJet has been on a bit of a precipice, Chris. It hasn't performed well through this pandemic. I'm sorry to say, and somebody who I learned my trade at EasyJet. That's where I kind of learned the craft of airline operations in a serious sense. And so it's disappointing to see that EasyJet has not. I don't think it's been as responsive or as agile or as quick to take on some of the opportunities afforded to them by this crisis. I think EasyJet were bloated before the pandemic. They were heavily over large overheads compared to the likes of Ryanair or Wizz Air. EasyJet were an inefficient machine, and that's very sad to see. So I think there's a lot of investment in the customer, a lot of investment in crew terms and conditions, a lot of investment in pilot labour agreements, and less focus on the cost base, less focus on operational efficiency. All of the metrics, very easy to control your costs. You are in charge of your own destiny to a large extent in terms of what goes into your cost build-up, your operational model that influences your costs. Very difficult to control your revenue. Therefore, we saw what happened during the pandemic was EasyJet were slow off the mark. They were slightly behind the curve, unlike Ryanair and Wizz Air, who were quickly out of the starting blocks and capitalising on every opportunity. So I think EasyJet was a risk and a target for those reasons, Chris. But for an airline like Wizz Air that launched in 2003 or 4, from the back of beyond in Ferryheads Airport in Budapest, and I remember flying with Wizz a lot in the early days from Katowice to Luton, which they made their own. Nobody had ever operated such a route before. And Wizz Air did exceptionally well. So to see them go from those humble beginnings in a shed at Katowice Airport, and they used to fly at this little terminal in Warsaw as well, a tiny little shed, which was budget terminal, but there was a name for it. It will come back to me. To where they are now, and with a market cap almost double that of EasyJet, is quite something. So once again, I doff my hat to Varady Joseph for and him and all his team for their work there, because they've clearly done a cracking job. But that probably won't be the only advance that EasyJet gets. I suspect there might well be some more in the pipeline.
Yeah, but it's but the share price is quite attractive now, Steve.
Well, it dropped to below £7, I think.
Yep.
I remember when EasyJet was sitting up about £17 or £18, Chris, not so long ago.
Yeah, no, exactly. And would you ever flutter on them?
I may do, but not yet. Not yet. I would like to see what plays out a little bit more.
Right, there you have
My
it.
airline investments have never been particularly wonderful, except Ryanair. Ryanair, I did exceptionally well, and did really quite good with Ryanair. And took a punt, of course, and it came good. My other investments, I have to say, in airline stock have not played out as well as that one. So
yeah. No, I can imagine. Now another issue, and something that it's long overdue that people took a little bit more of a balanced approach when they're making certain decisions, but being forced from a commercial perspective. But Boeing and the directors, potentially facing investor lawsuit over the crashes. And having somebody say that the first crash was a red flag, about a key safety system on the aircraft that the board should have heeded, but instead ignored. I mean, that's a terrible, 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 terrible statement to have on your shoulders if you're part of that particular group. But what they've done now, obviously the families are the worst affected, but from, shareholders and everybody else, I mean, it's been a terrible journey.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't handled particularly well. The immediate aftermath.
Dreadful.
I think Boeing got a little bit too big for their boots, Chris.
Yep.
I don't do much in the aerospace sector. I mean, typically with the OEMs, but not so much in terms of the overall sort of a design authority or the aspects that go into aircraft production, let's say. But my simple layman's view, therefore, is I think they got too big for their boots. They got too close to the regulator. The regulator gave Boeing a pass. They had a hospital pass, and Boeing, it was clear, was dictating to the design authority or to the FAA, the regulator, how they would approach, compliance or system management or safety management system, etc., etc., etc. And you think, well, this is a recipe for disaster, and it's an accident waiting to happen, literally and metaphorically. Sadly, literally, and hundreds of people were killed as a result. But I think the board were always responsible, Chris. The board were always responsible and are always responsible for the corporation's actions and the actions of its executive management. So I don't think that needed to be called out. I'm not surprised by that at all. I mean, that's part of the course. But look, Boeing lost. Still only a few years ago. I mean, Airbus had been edging ahead with the narrow body for quite some time, but really they've stolen all the thunder now. The Max is an aircraft that is on effectively the same airframe that is 60 years old, the same airframe platform, and Airbus have stolen the thunder. The new engine option, 320 family, really a stonking efficiency. And you saw this week the Jet 2 order. I think we discussed that last weekend. But
we did. Yeah, brilliant.
So there's more of those to come, I think. So yeah, traditional Boeing customers are now looking
across. Yeah, terrible. Now another thing, Steve, that's sort of it's growing in. It's growing in profile and people are talking a lot more about it, but now to see another question about pilots unions, picketing over fatigue and over scheduling, and also things like, adequate accommodation and what's happening with, how many of them have to fly return legs because of quarantine and all sorts. It's a totally, totally different package now for crews.
Yeah, I think it's one to watch. I mean, there have been enough early sort of advanced indicators on this, Chris. We need to be mindful, that changed work patterns or changed roster patterns, changed circumstances will affect the way in which we manage FRMS, and therefore operators, I think, have got to get a good handle and strong handles. And there are some very good operators out there. I mean, actually, we just spoke about EasyJet. EasyJet is known to be one of the best in class when it comes to FRMS. BALPA might on occasion dispute that, but I understand and have a good authority that they're a well-respected operator when it comes to managing fatigue risk. And so I think there's an awful lot of other operators that are probably as good, but some of the learning should be shared across industry. I don't see that happening very often.
Exactly.
I think the regulators take the view that thou shalt and an operator shall, an operator must do, but actually I think it's more about the how. We know why, and to a large extent we know what, but the how, I think, is what is often missing in this case, and that's where industry learnings from all sorts of different sectors come into play. I was in a client office last week. I have to say, it was really nice. It was fabulous to be at work in an office with people with a whiteboard, Chris.
Happy days.
And it was great. And anyway, I was in discussion with a team on rail, and actually the rail industry is looking at using a lot of the learnings that come from aviation when it comes to managing fatigue and fatigue risk management, etc. So I think we've got a good reputation thus far. Let's not spoil it by not sharing the spoils of the benefits of good practice. We should share them across all operators for the benefit of whole of industry, rather than just working in silos as individual operators creating their own schemes and systems.
Yeah, and this comes again. We've spoken about it many times about every. It's easy to say from everybody, regulators, representative bodies, etc. That collaboration is key, but it's the amount of people who say yeah, but then sharing data and putting certain information forward. There's a certain reluctance which needs to be changed. You mentioned earlier on, Steve, about Boeing, but also Ryanair. Ryanair now stopped their talks with regards to the MAX 10 aircraft. So they actually made a firm statement that negotiations with Boeing for the MAX 10 order have ended without any agreement on pricing. So it's so many bad pieces of press now for Boeing. It's terrible.
Well, Ryanair, of course, Ryanair know how to run a negotiation.
Yeah, they know how to negotiate. Yeah. They'd be up there with the chief.
Yeah. Ryanair know how to negotiate. They have never been shy at telling a supplier exactly what they require. I'm speaking from experience. Look, no surprise, Chris, but I think that's probably part of their ploy rather than a real shift to a potential Airbus solution.
Yeah. But as soon as it comes back on that they've got an agreement, then everybody else will jump on the bandwagon. So, it's still not good. But it's a good leverage ploy. So fair play to him. Now, British Airways and Lufthansa resuming flights from London City Airport.
Great news. I thought British Airways were flying already from London City Airport. I was looking at flights last week from Palma, but they seem to be there already. So
going into the city airport, yeah?
Yeah, because one of the options I had, I flew out of Heathrow, but I decided not to fly back into Heathrow. I wanted to do everything I possibly could not to avoid Heathrow, given the bad press of the immigration queues. So I was presented with some options with City Flyer into London City. But anyway, I took the £5 option with Ryanair into Stansted.
My God. But that is ridiculous, Steve, isn't it?
$5?
Yeah. That really is. I think that's ridiculous.
Well, I think that is fabulous, personally.
Yeah, but it's ridiculous, Steve, because you wouldn't have flinched if it was £25.
You're right, I wouldn't. And I was surprised it was a £5, because normally when flights are a £5, it generally means there's nobody on them. But there must have been about 120, 130 people on the flight. So I'm not sure what that was all about. But I made use of their pricing approach and snapped it up. It cost me then 29 quid on the Stansted Express, which is far from being an express.
Yeah.
Takes 50 minutes into Liverpool Street, although I got off at Tottenham Hale. But that's some work required there. But no, look, we will see. Just on pricing, we will see it. We will see more low fares being thrown into the market to stimulate demand, Chris, again, which I think is reasonable. But given
that too low, Steve, do you know what I'm saying? The stimulation will kick in at a certain level, but it doesn't have to go down to such a crazy price.
Well, if Michael Lee wants to price his flights at £5, I'm okay with that. Now, how many fares are there for a £5? That's to be determined. But But look, I think we will see more low fares being thrown into the market. We want to see more capacity return. For a lot of low cost carriers, capacity is a product of demand, and demand is stimulated by low fares. Demand that didn't exist. In typical O&D markets, you create new demand. So that is a good thing. But given that Mallorca is predominantly an inbound destination, I was surprised that that £5 Palma Stansted even existed. That was a shock.
Yeah. No, and I'm sure there's going to be
service with a smile, as I would always expect from Ryanair.
Yes, indeed. Now, another subject that we've spoken about and how companies respond to it, but I'm not sure how factual this is, but United Airlines, are suggesting that they're going to put employees who are unvaccinated on temporary leave until they come up with safety measures, and that covers people now with religious exemptions or medical exemptions. So that's a step that I'm sure you would not have suggested or endorsed had you been a senior manager there.
You're absolutely right, Chris. I would not. Yeah. I find that quite distasteful. I think it's all very well finding some levers or some tools in your armory, weapons to use to encourage and improve the uptake. But to go down that avenue, I thought is pretty and thoroughly distasteful.
Yeah, no, it's shocking, isn't it? Now, Steve, listen, something else that that's definitely going to come into the news a lot more now, in my opinion, anyhow. We've got the issue with the microchips for the car industry and how that's now holding up production and things are starting to slow up. You've got the drivers now, people suggesting that they were never valued the way they should be. And now you've got so many drivers who are so short now, and that's holding things up. And then we're going to come into cyber security. These things are going to come on the back of this pandemic. So there's going to be more and more and more challenges whereby people have got to be really, really on top of their risk assessment and also a little bit better at forecasting what's going to happen and acting ahead of time, because it's this rebound that causes so many problems, as well as, my goodness me, look how much this has cost us now. If we'd have done something earlier, it would have been a much more effective option.
Yeah. Look, it's sort of all these things sort of crashing together. It's probably not helpful. I think you got Brexit thrown in the mix there as well, Chris, with things like the hauliers and getting access to drivers. It just shows how much we were reliant on European labour. But I don't think that. I think that's a misnomer in itself. I mean, I think the government have approached this probably the wrong way. But I don't think Brexit is the issue. It's the set of rules now, the immigration rules that need to be updated or amended or refined to permit these workers. I mean, that seems a very straightforward solution to it. But conflating that with Brexit overall, I think, is wrong. But then you mentioned the microchips. Interesting, I never knew this until last week, that Malaysia, my dear home country, is one of the world's largest producers of microchips. And as we go up and down this bloody yo-yo in Malaysia, this hammer and claw, bang, bang, up, down, and factories open and close, this is causing an issue in the supply of microchips into the automotive industry in particular. But I guess some short-term pain, Chris, that no doubt will resolve itself fairly soon, I suspect.
Good time to sell a second-hand car, though.
Possibly.
Yeah, it is, Steve.
They've
gone up in price, mate. It's incredible.
Well, the cars never go up in value. Ever.
Well, I'll tell you, some are at the moment, and it's encouraging. So yeah, might be selling one shortly. Listen, thank you very much again. Another week. Nice to touch base. Glad you're back in the UK. Hope to see you soon. And when are you back off to Spain or back out east? You're not sure.
I wouldn't want to reveal my hand, Chris, in this forum. I keep my cards slightly closer to my chest. And
all right. So, well, if you're back in Spain, I'm going to be out there at the end of the month, so I'm looking forward to that.
I do enjoy being in Spain. I think it's a wonderful spot. It's fabulous weather now. September is great. All the ruddy tourists have pissed off back to their homes. All the kids are back at school. It's fabulous.
Yeah. Well done. There he is, patron saint of all travellers. All right, mate. Take care of yourself.
Cheerio.
See you next week. God bless.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Harlem.